Sound check. So, ladies and gentlemen, дамы и господа, у нас принесли наушники. So, our organizers. Работает? Yeah. Can I have your attention, please? Yeah. Можно внимание, пожалуйста? Спасибо. Доброе утро. Good morning. So, before we start, I'd like to ask you if you can take headphones, because the panel will be both in Russian and in English. So if you do need the translation, please take the headphones on the right side. Дамы и господа, панель будет и на английском, и на русском языке, поэтому вам нужно будет взять наушники, если вы хотите понимать все, что будет сказано. Спасибо. So, ladies and gentlemen, дамы и господа, тогда мы начнем. So, we would like to start. This is more, okay, now it works. Perfect. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second day. Everybody, please take place. Пожалуйста, присаживайтесь. Okay. So, I hope you all had a good coffee this morning, and welcome to the second day of this very important event. I hope we will have a effective second day of the conference. Let me introduce our speakers who will join us this morning. Dilshodakya Sultanov, Deputy Minister of Finance, who is responsible for tax and customs policy and forecasting. Zafarakya Hashimov, IFC Regional Manager. Husanakya Hasanov, Islamic Development Bank Field Representative. Okay. Enrico Pinali, Adb Deputy Country Director. Alkis Drakinos, who is the head of Tashkent Resident Office of EBRD. Fakhriddin Ilyasov, he is the entrepreneur and CEO of Ilyasov LLC in Fergana. Malika Sharipova, she's the founder and CEO of Care CSR. And Michael Matistek, he is the CEO of Idea Foundry and expert on entrepreneurship. Please welcome everyone to our panel. A few housekeeping rules. So I will have to limit again your discussion to your individual speech to 7 minutes. We have a large panel this morning, and then we will try to keep it as active as possible. There will be again a gentleman here, Timur Malik. I have recruited him. He will show you at 7 minutes that you have 1 extra minute, and at 8 minutes he will show you that your time has run out. So I will give a little hand to Timur Malik, and thank you very much for helping us to execute this little discussion. I would like to again thank also the organizers. It is very important to have this kind of event in Bukhara, and it is really a young, dynamic team of Ministry of Poverty and Economy and Poverty Reduction and Ministry of Finance who are executing this event. So bravo, and thank you for organizing it. We'll jump right into it. So this is a very important topic, employment, private and small and medium enterprises and investment climate. So as Her Excellency EU Ambassador mentioned yesterday, 90% of jobs in Europe today are created through SMEs, and Uzbekistan is also going to move in that direction. SMEs are critical, and we would like to focus our discussion on around that and around topics related. So Dilshodakya Sultanov, first word I would like to give to you. It's not a secret that Uzbekistan's people are very entrepreneurial, and Uzbekistan has executed a very serious reform in tax administration, and there are more efforts being taken to take more of the economy out of the shadow sector into the light and have companies and SMEs develop and take more benefit from being into the light of the economy. So could you tell us briefly about the key milestones that Uzbekistan has reached in terms of the tax reform, and what more efforts are being taken to support SMEs and job creation? Please take the floor.
Добрый день, коллеги. Добрый день, участники. Я хотел бы вкратце остановиться от тех мероприятий, которые были уже приняты, о тех реформах, которые были проведены и туда, куда мы дальше идем. Ну, первое, это, конечно, вот налоговая реформа, которая стартовала в 2018 году, и она была направлена на формализацию фонда оплаты труда, да, то есть на легализацию фонда оплаты труда. Да, может быть, кто-то скажет, что это было неправильно сделано, кто-то скажет, что это было так. Ну, я скажу так, что это был переходный период, когда необходимо было сделать очень упрощенную систему исчисления налогов с фонда оплаты труда. Была сделана плоская ставка налога на доходы физических лиц и плоская ставка социального налога. То есть сегодня ставка налога на доходы физических лиц составляет 12%, социальный налог тоже 12%. Второй задачей были отменены все налоги, которые мешали малому бизнесу и крупному предпринимательству. Они были упрощены с 13 до 9, было сокращено количество налогов, был принят новый налоговый кодекс, и это все существенно упростило процедуру налогового администрирования и исполнения налогового законодательства. Так вот, с 2020 года, начиная с 2020 года, когда был принят налоговый кодекс, уже ставка НДС была 15%, мы снизили с 20 до 15%. Была сделана реформа других налогов, чтобы существенно упростить для малого бизнеса ведение налоговых обязательств. Малый бизнес отошел от привязки к численности, самое главное, когда он был вынужден скрывать численность для того, чтобы не переходить на тот или иной режим налогообложения, а привязка его осуществлялась исключительно исходя из тех оборотов, которые он осуществляет. И вот на сегодняшний день этот оборот у нас определен в $1 миллиард, это где-то примерно 90 тысяч долларов в год. То есть при превышении этого оборота малый бизнес, или как мы его будем называть, созданная компания, переходит на уплату НДС и общеустановленных налогов. С точки зрения налогообложения и легализации численности, чего мы достигли? Да, мы отменили. Мы раньше физические лица платили страховые взносы, юридическое лицо платило социальный налог, а я как гражданин еще платил НДФЛ. Соответственно, мы оставили только НДФЛ, соцналог и отменили 8% страховые взносы. Что вы получили? Получили в результате увеличения. Рост количества плательщиков НДФЛ, которые работают официально по найму. Да, если они составляли 3 миллиона 904 миллиона, то сегодня они 4 миллиона 905 миллионов почти. То есть, соответственно, а в среднегодовом исчислении это почти 5,5 миллионов. То есть увеличилось количество плательщиков НДФЛ. Второе, мы наблюдаем, что увеличилось количество, которое платит свыше, то есть получает заработную плату свыше 3 миллионов, свыше 5 миллионов. Раньше, если их количество составляло буквально там 3,5%, то сегодня уже граждане, получающие свыше, почти свыше 5 миллионов, составляют уже 13%. То есть такой рост позволяет говорить о том, что люди начали легализовать свою заработную плату, показывать и так далее. Но самое главное, в организации занятости мы поняли для себя, что это стимул для образования. И мы начали дать очень много льгот, которые позволили бы молодежи развиваться. То есть мы сказали, да, у нас была программа по повышению, по второму, то есть по высшему образованию. То есть я являюсь студентом, я оплачиваю кредитными средствами контракт, у меня есть были вычеты. Соответственно, точно такую же систему мы сделали для тех, кто повышает свою квалификацию. То есть не только высшее учебное заведение, но любой курс повышения квалификации, он тоже будет являться вычитаемым расходом. Второе, мы сказали, что все, что касается сдачи каких-то экзаменов, сдачи, получения каких-то сертификатов, необходимых для деятельности, они тоже будут вычитаться при исчислении налога на доходы физических лиц. Второе направление, которое мы взяли, это поддержка наших женщин. То есть для того, чтобы женщины могли трудоустраиваться, необходимо было создание широкой сети дошкольных образовательных учреждений. Мы их называем детскими садами, и там мы тоже дали соответствующие стимулы. Да? Мы дали стимулы по поводу того, что государство будет платить негосударственным образовательным учреждениям средства из бюджета на выплату, например, заработной платы. Если в прошлом году мы за весь год заплатили 400 миллиардов, то в этом году только в первом квартале мы уже отдали 170 миллиардов. То есть это направление так интенсивно начинает развиваться. Второе направление, которое мы сказали, что мы будем платить еще и возмещать деньги, которые были заплачены в виде социального налога, тем людям, которые работают на предприятии более 6 месяцев, то есть трудоспособная молодежь. И такая программа уже начала стартовать в прошлом году, и мы ежемесячно примерно возвращаем по 35 миллиардов сумм предприятиям, у которых работает молодежь в возрасте до 25 лет, мы им компенсируем часть налогов. И начиная с этого года, с 1 апреля, мы пока результаты сказать не можем, но мы приняли, руководитель принял такие направления, которые позволили бы существенно сократить нагрузку на тех людей или на тот фонд оплаты труда, который до сих пор остается в тени. Это сервис, сфера сервиса, где мы не видим, где не досчитываем людей. В этом сервисе мы сказали, что 1% они будут платить социальный налог для того, чтобы обеспечить занятость тех людей, которые там работают, чтобы легально обеспечить их занятость. Вот такие меры поддержки. Кроме того, мы сказали, что в отдельных регионах для женщин, которые включены там, эти регионы, которые являются судоиспыточными, там будет снижена налоговая нагрузка и так далее. То есть мы сделали все меры для того, чтобы снизить или сократить налоговую нагрузку на физических лиц, особенно это в сельских районах, в труднодоступных районах, но в то же время мы сделали программу, которая позволила бы женщинам повышать свою квалификацию, получать образование и работать на компаниях, возмещая компании те деньги, которые она затратила на повышение квалификации, на подготовку этих специалистов. Что мы планируем дальше делать? Дальше мы, конечно, будем дальнейшее стимулирование образования. То есть мы сейчас будем думать, вот было принято решение о том, чтобы давать вычеты на кредитные средства, которые направлены и на оплату дошкольных образовательных учреждений, возможно, частных школ. В дальнейшем будем думать о том, чтобы повысить занятость именно женщин на селе, предоставляя дополнительные кредитные ресурсы и так далее. Мы ввели в 2020 году новый инструмент, называется «Самозанятое население». Это физические лица, которые сами себя обеспечивают работой. Пока эта система как бы на стартовом периоде, она там уже более миллиона человек, но единственное, что мы должны создать для них условия по взаиморасчетам между собой. Это новые платформы, это внедрение IT-технологий, создать возможность взаиморасчетов между собой, рекламы себя, показать себя, доступность себя, это какие-то новые платформы. И третье, это что касается поддержки малого бизнеса. Для нас самая главная задача у нас как бы по комментариям наших международных экспертов, международных как бы участников, партнеров, налоговая нагрузка, то есть налоговые ставки, они более-менее нормальные. Сейчас осталось решить вопрос по комплайнсу, то есть по соблюдению налогового законодательства. Для этого нам надо упростить налоговую отчетность, нам надо упростить виды бухгалтерского учета в целях налогообложения. Я думаю, что тогда, когда мы перейдем все это на годовой диапазон, мы к концу года уже можем достигнуть того, чтобы малый бизнес через автоматизированную программу налоговых органов мог исполнять налоговые обязательства, не видя каких-либо налоговых проблем. Спасибо большое. Это вкратце то, что мы планируем. Спасибо.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. So it is very important that Uzbekistan is making a special effort to support the young entrepreneurs and especially as well entrepreneurship among women. As we know that when we educate women, we educate the whole nation. So this is very good to see that this kind of efforts are really not only on attention, but really being prioritized. So Zafarakia Hashimov, I will give the floor next to you. I know that IFC has invested 170 million in MSMEs development and including women entrepreneurship as well among women in Uzbekistan. So, but I would like to take a step back and ask you, what are the links between MSME entrepreneurship and poverty reduction? And since access to finance, we all know, is a very big topic for the IFC, how is that impacting MSME development and job creation? So please, could you have the floor? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aybek. Yeah, it is proven by many researchers that jobs mostly can be created by private sector development and especially by micro, small and medium enterprise development. So public sector can create jobs, but usually it's create jobs, but more jobs, more sustainable jobs creates by small and medium entrepreneurship. And to help them sustainably grow, they should be clear rules of the game. They should be supporting, enabling environment. And we also can say that different type of MSMEs requires different type of support. And as Mr. Sultanov mentioned right now, it is so government of Uzbekistan is also working on focusing their support on different areas. So, for example, MSME in rural areas and in towns, or micro enterprises, small enterprises, women enterprises, they require different attention and they require different type of support. And in general, as conducive is business enabling environment, as better MSMEs are growing. We also should pay attention on not only creating of MSMEs, but also letting them flourishing. Unfortunately, the statistics shows that in Uzbekistan we have a good range of opening new MSMEs, but we cannot see that MSMEs are growing further, that they are becoming bigger. And probably this is one point where government should pay more attention. Access to finance is also, it's one of the key components, key ingredients of enabling environment for MSME. And I would like to highlight three main kind of ingredients of this ingredient that for improving access to finance. Yes, it's strengthening enabling environment and financial infrastructure. Financial infrastructure is very important component of access to finance. Having strong credit bureau system, having strong registry of collateral registries, and having strong companies, consulting companies around banking sector usually helps to improve access to finance to small and medium enterprises. Second component is also available for funding. For funding resources which banks or microfinance institutions can allocate to MSMEs. And I think the last but not least component is for financial inclusion and financial literacy. We can see an example of some neighboring countries that sometimes law for financial literacy and strong kind of supply side driven financing can create some social problems, some social issues. And that's why access to finance should go together with financial inclusion. And I'm glad to highlight that last year, government of Uzbekistan, with support of World Bank Group, adopted for financial inclusion strategy, and World Bank Group is actively helping government on implementing this strategy. We also would like to highlight that state cannot fill the whole gap on access to finance. So private sector, private financial institutions should come and fill this gap. For helping private financial institutions to fill this gap, they should have a more or less the same level playing field. And in this regard, I would like to highlight the issue, important component which now is kind of, there is this type of examples in Uzbekistan where state tries to support MSMEs by providing subsidized lending. And this traditionally subsidized lending can help only with narrow range of entrepreneurs and for very short period of time. But at the same time, it prevents private institutions to come and play in this field, and it limits competition in financial market. And also statistics shows that NPLs level on subsidized lending usually higher than commercial lending. So that's why I believe we should pay more attention to create environment where private commercial financing can come and entrepreneurs can get wider access to finance. And we know it is proven that enterprises are ready to pay commercial rates. And we can see that business which was developed using commercial for finance, it is more sustainable. It would stay longer, even if subsidized lending will sometimes in future will be limited or will go to the end. With this, yes, thank you very much for highlighting IFC experience. I would like to also add a little bit more statistics about recent 3 years. Yes, IFC provided more, about 250 million MSME lending. and more than 35 million out of them, it was for folks for women entrepreneurship, and it is also very gender for finance is very important component, and we're working hard with our partners on implementing gender focus for financing in Uzbekistan. Let me stop here, and I would be glad to respond if you would other questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hashimov. And I would like to thank our speakers so far really for being spot on the timing. That deserves a separate appreciation. So what we heard, the SME creation indeed is one thing, and having them grow is another. And that's a very, very important point to make. And of course, filling the gaps on terms of financial inclusion, what we heard as well on that subsidized lending prevents market entry. And this is one of the very important points that we hear also today around the world. The famous investor Bruce Greenwald calls that a moat around the market entry. And certainly this is one of the things that competition and market access is one of the things that Uzbekistan government is trying to really focus on, I believe, in the next years as well. Next, we will offer the floor to Mr. Husan Hasanov and on Isdp. Uzbekistan has held chairmanship in Isdp last year, and the bank has a very large portfolio that is dedicated to working with SMEs and supporting the everything everything related to that. That's 850 million related with this activity. Building on some of the things that our previous speakers mentioned, as far as I know, Isdp is helping Uzbekistan as well develop legislative base today for some of the new and potentially very important elements. That's microfinancing as well as Islamic banking. So perhaps you can tell us about these plans and how it's going. And one of the things that also I would like you to ask is that, of course, the bank has substantial experience in microfinancing in the different countries, such countries as Pakistan. So, for example, a very famous project. So maybe you can tell us how Uzbekistan could also apply that potentially experience. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Aybek. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear gentlemen, dear guests, first of all, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me to this panel to share experience of Islamic Development Bank in member countries, also activities of Isdp in Uzbekistan. Nowadays, Isdp portfolio is more than 2.5 billion, and from that is around more than 700 million US dollar is we provided to support MSMEs in Uzbekistan through our entities, Isdp group entities, this Isdp itself, and ICD, Islamic Corporation for Development of Private Sector, International Islamic Trade Finance Corporation, and also ISEC, also active in private sector support through Takaful, it's Islamic insurance. During the annual meeting last year in September, agreement was signed on sustainable rural development project with amount 200 million directed to raise rural residents' living standards by improving access to basic infrastructure and services through participatory local governance process and community engagement. This will contribute to poverty reduction and build steadfast resilience of targeted population towards vulnerable situation and risks. Moreover, Isdp is under approval of strengthening the economic we already approved is under the signing of strengthening the economic resilience of the vulnerable enterprises project with amount 40 million US dollar, which will support the enterprises in targeted regions by providing an integrated economic empowerment package that will enable economic opportunities, allow them to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, and sustain inclusive growth of the individual entrepreneurs and MSMEs. There will be specific focus on supporting women and youth MSMEs and those working in specific strategic value chains. Furthermore, Isdp in cooperation with the Ministry of Investment and Foreign Trade is involved in establishment of Economic Empowerment Fund of Uzbekistan with targeted fund size of $100 million, which will support to establish a platform to provide support for the development of MSMEs and support job creation, contribute to poverty alleviation in Uzbekistan, and it can be also increase the fund amount to $500 million. As well as Isdp Group through its entities, I already mentioned ICD, ITFC, and Isaac, providing extensive assistance to the country development programs, especially with financing the private sector projects in Uzbekistan to date. Total net approvals of ICD amounts more than around $400 million, ITFC around $300 million, and Isaac more than $250 million. And they are providing financing through line of finance, through commercial banks, and also direct financing to MSMEs. And today, as a result of, since 26, ICDs through line of financing projects have contributed to creation more than 5,000 new jobs. About 250 MSMEs activities was supported. Established cooperation with 18 financial institutions and local commercial banks. As well as ICD has direct finance operations in Uzbekistan, within which 7 projects of private sector enterprises was implemented, with amount more than 55 million and 300 new jobs created. And through ICD's leasing company, Taiba Leasing, it was created more than 1,500 new jobs. As regard to Islamic legislation, nowadays Isdp is working in 3 directions. One of them is creation of Islamic banking legislation. Second one is the creation of Islamic capital market legislation. And third one is Islamic social finance, it's Waqf legislation. In Uzbekistan, we are working with the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Investment and Foreign Trade, and Committee on Religious Issues on each direction. And also UNDP is supporting us on the creation of Islamic capital market legislation in Uzbekistan. And as regard to, as a research or a review of our financing in Uzbekistan, I can say that the entrepreneurs and the population of Uzbekistan is very keen to get the financing, Sharia compliant financing from the commercial banks. As a result of surveys supported by UNDP, more than 70% of population and more than 50% of entrepreneurs are ready to move their accounts to Islamic banks if it will be opened in Uzbekistan. And also, if the ICD will provide the line of financing to commercial banks, usually it's fastly used by the commercial, by the entrepreneurs. They will take it, and there are many also commercial banks is waiting. Also, we are working on the creation of Islamic windows in 9 commercial banks in Uzbekistan. As regard to experience of Pakistan in microfinance, there is an NGO named Ahuwat in Pakistan, which was established in 2001, and with $2,000, and nowadays it covers 400 cities, and they have more than 800 branches in overall Pakistan. And they already supported 4 million families through this, through microfinance, through Qard al-Hasan. It's interest-free financing in Islamic finance, and 90.7% of the financing was directed to family enterprises. 6.8% was directed to agriculture, to support agriculture projects, and 0.18 for the weddings, and 6.5 it's to other target, to other purposes, maybe medical and other purposes. It's a good experience, and they supported 58% of male and 42% of women through this initiative. And some people of Uzbekistan, I mean, they initiated also creation of such microfinance NGO and already applied to Minister of Justice to establish it in Uzbekistan, but still it's already, I think, more than 1 year they applied, and still there is no reply from the Minister of Finance to create this NGO. It will support, it will be supportive for the budget of Uzbekistan, state budget. The people can support the creation of new jobs through this NGO. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your excellent remarks. Indeed, Capital Markets Development Program that Uzbekistan is focusing on and where your bank is involved is indeed very important. It is one of the areas that will start benefit Uzbekistan in coming years. And once this is reaching a certain level, certainly we will see benefits that Uzbekistan has really never seen before in the past. And just briefly on the Islamic banking and capital markets regarding Islam. So this is one of the very important areas that indeed every bank, so for those of you who don't know that, almost every bank, commercial and government co-owned, is developing a product now, products related to Islamic banking. So working on a solid legislative base to go together with the government is indeed something that will just scale towards the whole banking system, and it will do that very, very quickly. So next, I would like to invite Enrico Pinali to talk about Adb activities in Uzbekistan. Enrico, you've been in Uzbekistan for 2.5 years, but you have also followed Uzbekistan in the past for 3 years, and you saw a gap between that, and I'm sure you have been following Uzbekistan in between as well. What I would like to ask, of course, first is what are the very specific focus areas that Adb has in Uzbekistan, but given your experience, also significant experience that you had from other developing countries, from both Asia and South America. So perhaps there are things that you could think of or suggest that are new, that have not been yet implemented in Uzbekistan, that by the government, by the IFIs, that could actually create social impact and impact on SMEs on the topic of our today's discussions. You have the floor, please.
Thank you, Oybek, and good morning, everybody. Definitely it's a pleasure to discuss this topic, which is at the bottom of everybody's heart, SME development. And yes, you're right. I actually was a colleague with Zafar in those days when we started. So I guess, yeah, the country has gone through a nice trajectory, and definitely we see the flurry of economic activities, the flurry of job creation, the flurry of innovation even in the country, quite remarkable. In terms of Adb, traditionally Adb has been serving the SME sector also through financial intermediation loans, mostly to its sovereign operations, i.e. with the government guarantee. And those were targeting small businesses. And in recent year, we actually went a little bit more on subsectors of agribusiness, horticulture, and livestock. Now, in line with the government desire to decrease the sovereign borrowings and the sovereign support for commercial banks, we have now moved to more direct lending to them, again, to support SME, and again, in line with our peers here, targeting, of course, subsector of women, rural enterprises, agribusinesses, and so on. Now, fixing access to finance is one part of the equation. And in that aspect, there are elements that can be improved. So one thing that I think is important to highlight when we talk about SMEs, in general, when we do access to finance operation, the target now is really to try to help de-dollarize the banking system, meaning that, the SME, not all of them are actually generating hard currency. Therefore, it's important for us to provide a local currency solution to our partner banks to be able to actually take off that risk from the balance sheet and from the enterprise itself. So all of us have been doing that, and we're actually working. IFC is actually leading this work on trying to help through the capital markets to tackle that issue. Now, one other thing, Oybek and ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to maybe highlight, there's one aspect that I think is a bit underutilized in the country, and then maybe that's potential to work more, which is try to find some more what we call unfunded solution, which is pretty much means risk sharing. I think there is if we want to try to push the envelope on the commercial banks and our financial intermediaries to get into more MSME lending, and especially, maybe more high risk one for their point of view, we should try to accompany that process by maybe some risk sharing of this portfolio that could target those segments. And these are, of course, it takes two to tango, right? So we need to kind of socialize this idea with our partner banks, but this is really where we can push a little bit the envelope now to get away from traditional formal lending. And this goes to my next point, which is really the need to, in this new Uzbekistan, to also change a little bit of the cultural of lending. Why? The credit culture has always been, I lend to you as long as I have collateral. The last statistic I actually look at, I think it was 94% of the loans were with hard collateral, and the rest of the loans were with cash collateral. So this is really the next step. I think the cultural challenge that we have to help the SME and the banks to move on. And this is on both sides, because yes, the banks have to really start stepping up their analytical skills and the risk-taking framework. Right now, I don't think there's appetite to get into that. However, on the other side, we also have to accompany the clients. We have to accompany the SMEs to improve their financial reporting and their business planning. I mean, you wanna try to get a loan with no collateral. You need to present a good case, and that's where a lot of the soft upstream work should focus on going forward. Now, you wanted an example, Oybek, from other countries. I remember, we're talking about, when I was doing some of these credit lines in Latin America, I remember we were already doing the cash flow, but even not only the cash flow, the training on the cash flow analysis for the banks, but also there were some interesting IT solutions where you actually were giving credits based on a credit score generated by a psychometric tool on the interviews with entrepreneurs. No collateral, just pure interviews. And this is something new that maybe, in the future, once we get into that cash flow lending, we can actually introduce here. And that was really powerful, because you really, a lot of these actors were really targeted to reach the unbanked. So that was really, really, really impressive. Now, as I said, access to finance is one part of the equation. It's not it's not the only solution for improving. So with Adb, we're actually focusing on what we call upstream work, which is the business environment, the conducive conditions for not only improve credit, but also to have SME be created, operate, and even exit. So I think I'd like to highlight quickly, before Abdul Malik comes up with this in 1 minute, a few points. One, Zafar already mentioned it, the importance of credit bureau. Definitely flow of information, filling the asymmetry gap. It's really important, and I think we all should try to help that becomes a powerful tool. Another element that go back to my previous point on de-risking, really, or accompanied risk. The country has a state entrepreneurship, a state fund for support of entrepreneurship. That fund, I think, is potential not they're underutilized. I think with Adb, we're working now to try to improve both the eligibility criteria, the qualification criteria, and its functioning, because that has a powerful tool to actually augment a little bit the risk appetite of these institutions, of these financial institutions. So that's another piece of work that going forward will be very helpful. The last 2 points, I think one of the business surveys that I read recently, of course, there's a perception by the SMEs that they're lacking, there's a skill gap for them to be able to grow their business. So here, another important point that we are intervening actually with a standalone operation with Adb is to help create the skill force for this SME through technical and vocational education. I think this is very important because sometimes the lack of skills is what is really undermining the capacity of this SME to grow. And as a last point, given that I got the 1 minute now, I would like to mention one point that I briefly touched upon yesterday on the previous panel, digitalization. I think a lot of SMEs missing digital visibility and functionality. And what I'm meaning, even a simple website or social media presence. And one thing that I believe this COVID crisis has shown us is the business can actually leverage on IT, not only to survive, but actually to grow. And to finalize my intervention, as a personal experience during the lockdown, not very long, but the brief lockdown we had in Tashkent, I actually learned how to online grocery. I use one application that I don't want to publicize, but you all know them. And actually now it became part of my life. You know, I go to the supermarket, but most of the bulk grocery is done online. And I discovered that during the pandemic, and that was a really show the potential of digitalization to actually grow your business. I'll stop here, Oybek. I hope we're good insight for you to continue the debate.
Thank you very much, Enrico, for your excellent remarks. Indeed, so one of the key points that I would like to pick up on is skilled force and supporting capacity building in Uzbekistan. Adb is very often involved, and as many IFIs as well, things that we see, the statistics we see in public, but there is also under the hood and very meticulous work that every international financial institution is doing here, and helping to transform banks is one of them. And in terms of what we see today, the banking sector in general, that we see today has substantially transformed over the very short period of since 2017. It's a completely different world, I would say, in terms of banking. And skilled force, having capacity building programs, having training, and in terms of as well experience that the banks have, Adb as well has in different countries, having that credit scores everywhere almost in the world today, having that implemented in Uzbekistan is indeed a very good suggestion. And indeed, it's something that I think that many IFIs should try to help Uzbekistan in to get more experience and to really implement the system. Next, I would like to talk to Alkis Drakonos. He's been here since 2017. He's the representing EBRD here. Alkis, you have seen the transformation not only of Uzbekistan, but also the relationship between EBRD, dramatic, I would say, transformation between the relationship of EBRD and Uzbekistan in this period. I think you are one of the IFIs who has the largest offices here in Uzbekistan today in such a short period of time. And I'd like to ask you what EBRD is doing to support job creation and SMEs in Uzbekistan. I know you have offices even in the regions and you keep opening new ones. So why don't you share with us a little bit of that experience? And one more specific question is, how do you intend to further scale that support that you are doing already to the SMEs in the regions? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question, and thank you very much everyone for being here with us. Speaking last among IFIs brings me the benefit to hear the wisdom from everybody else. And just to say that we at the BRD are very much combined and aligned with colleagues' initiatives here in Uzbekistan. Our approach for the SME sector has basically three axes. One is financing, promote access to finance, then provide advisory, and then engage into policy dialogue with the government in order to achieve some institutional, let's say, regulatory changes in order to facilitate the SME growth in the country. From what has been said so far, I would like to pick up on the point that the government is really supporting a lot the SMEs here. And yes, taxation and subsidies are short-lived. I mean, taxation is good right now where it is, but subsidized loans, subsidized lending is something that cannot really have a lasting effect on SME development. The secret is somewhere else, right? And the secret for SME development is, I mean, as colleagues said, is very much into access of financing and actually changing the mentality of SMEs themselves on how to develop, right? Now, SMEs are a wide-ranging, let's say, participant in the economy, from the very small enterprises to the bigger SMEs. It is true that among the wide range of SMEs, the larger ones are a little bit more, let's say, efficient, are more resilient than the small ones. From my student years, I remember that, you know, from every startup, about 30% fails in the first 3 years, and about 70% in total fails in the 10 years span. So it means that supporting SMEs is an art, right? You need to support SMEs, of course, in startup phase, and be selective and good and smart about it, but also supporting established SMEs is a key to the economic development. Now, on established SMEs, many colleagues have talked about access to finance. I want to pick up on some points. Credit bureau is a good one. And then avoiding subsidized lending is very another good point mentioned by colleagues. Risk sharing products is a very good approach that we should be looking at, how IFIs and government can work on providing risk sharing capabilities to the banks for SMEs. But the most important is moving out to the extent possible out of collateral lending, collateral-based lending. This is actually like putting the brake. At the same time, we put our feet on the accelerator. We have companies here, and we have a representative that I know, Mr. Ilyasov will speak after me, right? He needs to provide collateral in a business that collateral is not really, readily available, and he's challenged. And we are trying as an institution, I'm sure with other colleagues as well, how to provide solution to this. And I think that by new products like factoring and leasing, we can provide some solutions, right? So you asked me how we can expand our operations. Before entering to this, let me just say that in the advisory level, we have, through our offices and through our small and medium enterprises advisory team, we are providing advisory services to SMEs that are eligible, and we try to increase their skills in business planning, branding, how to access the banks. We're talking to women entrepreneurs. We are very sensitive to gender, and we are promoting women entrepreneurship as much as possible. We work with the Wi-Fi fund to increase funding to women-led businesses in the country, and we do all that. But going back now to the case of how can we expand our business and how can we be more impactful, I'm thinking of the following lines. We have, in the SME universe, there are a few that can work as aggregators in their sectors, right? So we have small producers in the countryside, and these producers cannot have access to the international markets or cannot, I mean, a small producer in Fergana may not be able to sell or transfer their products in a competitive price to sell to Tashkent. So they are, for that, we need to figure out a solution. And working with aggregators is one, right? We would like to provide support to the SMEs that can benefit as follows. First, purchase the goods, the production, let's say agricultural production, produced from the very small companies in the countryside in mass, and these guys have to pay in cash and on time, and that's a problem. Where do they find the cash? The banks can help them through factoring or through, let's say, yeah, through factoring is a banking product. And small entrepreneurs or mid-sized entrepreneurs in the countryside can benefit from leasing in purchasing some equipment and putting the equipment as collateral in order for them to get tractors or whatever they need in order to produce more in their agricultural products. Then these aggregators can address the market, and they can sell the goods internally, or they can address even better the external markets, like doing exports. And for that, we are willing to provide advisory services on product standardization and to enable local producers eventually go up the scale and produce more and address with dynamic exports their growth challenges. I think I can stop here and respond to questions afterwards. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Alkes. One of the points that I want to just highlight, the 2 points we heard already a few times here today, and this is importance of the support for existing SMEs, not just creation of the new ones, and the need and the importance of the transformation of the lending mechanisms. So sharing of the risks by the banks, and also system of collateral. So indeed, the modernization of the lending mechanisms across the system will allow to have much more support without much really effort in terms of creating something new. Next, I'd like to offer Fakhreddin Ilyasov the floor. He's a man with a phenomenal story. He came back to Uzbekistan only a few years ago, and today he employs 980 people directly, and over 2,000 indirectly. And he's developing and scaling that approach together with the government, together with the support of EBRD, and hopefully, I saw yesterday that you're also collaborating with GIZ to try to access to new markets such as Europe. So please tell us a little bit your story and what you are doing from the practical perspective, because you are in the Fergana region, you are on the ground, you are working with the people and actually facilitating job creation in the most direct way possible. So please tell us a little bit your experience.
If you don't mind, I will continue in Russian. Ну, половину моей речи здесь уже теорию рассказал Алкис Дракинас, как работают сельскохозяйственные агрегаторы. Ну, расскажу, что происходит на поле, да, как мы работаем. Поскольку наша компания работает как кластер, мы имеем уже опыт работы с фермерами. У нас в наш кластер входит 33 фермерских хозяйства общей площадью 613 гектаров земли. И в этом году по борьбе с бедностью было принято решение правительством о выделении 80 тысяч гектаров пашневых земель для выдачи как бы малоимущим. Да? Это 20 соток на человека. Мы с правительством Узбекистана, с EBRD, GIZ и с нашей компанией сейчас начали пилотный проект В этом пилотном проекте у нас первый посев – это 100 гектаров пашневых земель. 100 гектаров по 20 соток – это 500 человек, которые работают на этом поле. Второй посев у нас будет 500 гектаров. Это, если будем считать по 20 соток, 2500 человек. И для мощности нашего предприятия мы нуждаемся в 2000 гектаров пашневых земель для выращивания овощей. Как мы работаем на данный момент? Наша компания выдает саженцы, удобрения, агрономическое сопровождение людям, которые владеют этими землями. Эта кооперация работает вместе с новым институтом, таким, как называется, помощники хакимов. Каждый помощник хакима, ну, смотря в какой он махале находится, это около 300, 200 людей, которые имеют по эти 20 соток, являются как бы лидерами этих людей и делают кооперацию с нашей организацией. Я вас поправлю, Айбек Алишерович, 980 человек работает в общем нашем кластере, где холдинге, где много разных предприятий, а наша компания, она 140 человек, да? Поскольку сейчас все данные, они общедоступны, не хочу выглядеть как обманщиком. Что мы делаем с GIZ? GIZ предоставляет своих консультантов нашей компании, с которыми мы будем работать по привлечению специалистов для получения сертификации органик. Это для повышения добавочной стоимости наших продуктов, поскольку на данный момент себестоимость, если обходится там в $1 и продаем в $2, то органика это уже $5, да? Таким образом мы, соблюдая требования сертификации, можем повышать маржу в разы. Да? Что мы делаем с EBRD? В прошлом году мы с помощью EBRD взяли грант и сделали трансформацию нашей отчетности в IFRS, и сейчас начинаем работать по прямому финансированию с EBRD наших проектов. Первый пилотный проект – это факторинг, да, поскольку мы работаем с российским ритейлом и всегда нуждаемся в потоке денежных средств. EBRD нам предоставляет сейчас на следующих этапах прямое финансирование в виде факторинга. Ну, я думаю, наш проект, в конце концов, если мы будем иметь полноценную мощность, это 2000 гектаров пашневых земель, на которых будет работать около 10 тысяч человек. Если мы будем говорить про математику 20 соток, да, как же можно в 20 сотках сделать что-то, что может победить бедность? Могу рассказать на примере нашего первого посева, это болгарский перец. 1 гектар болгарского перца – это 50 тысяч саженцев. Каждый саженец, он в среднем выдает от полкило до 1 килограмма, да, это смотря, ну, как будет урожайность. 20 соток – это 10 тысяч саженцев, которые выдают около, если мы будем считать по 700 грамм, да, среднестатистически, это будет уже около 70 тонн, да. 70 тонн в среднем, если мы продаем по 1000, покупаем по 1800 сумм у населения, это будет в порядке 15 миллионов суммов. Из этих 15 миллионов суммов мы будем вычитывать у них саженцы, которые мы выдавали в начале, удобрения, будем вычитывать также машинные мощности, которые привлекались. И это у них только на первом посеве это около 10 миллионов дохода на первом полугодии. Не скажу, что они станут богатыми, но как-нибудь прокормить хотя бы себя и плюс-минус одного человека смог. Поэтому у нас есть такой опыт. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ilyasov. And it is very important to have you here because it's one thing to talk in theory, what we are doing. It's another thing to see what's happening on the ground, to try to really understand and comprehend the methodology, the approach that the entrepreneurs are using, the tools that we see they're using in order to, that we are talking about in practice to have that on the ground impact. So next I'd like to invite Malika Sharipov to speak. Malika is one of the very few international experts, certified internationally experts on ESG and CSR. You're very famous here because whenever you're looking for a social expert, the chances are that Malika will be the person that is recommended. I would say that these are almost definitive. And ESG is something we don't really talk enough in Uzbekistan about. And this is one of the comments I get a lot from our European companies coming to the forum. Malika, how would you describe the role of CSR and ESG in solving key social issues such as reduction of poverty?
Yeah, thank you, Adb. You're right, it's not frequently talked in Uzbekistan, but it's slowly developing. And I'm pleased to see that more and more people are engaged in learning about CSR and ESG. I would say ESG and CSR has substantial role in in supporting or in alleviating poverty in Uzbekistan. And because I can talk about several points why. So the first one is like promoting CSR and ESG and implementing the management practices, management principles of those theories, let's say. It has like substantial kind of role in inclusive economic development in Uzbekistan, because CSR and ESG not only helps businesses on a to perform better financially, but it's also plays, as I said, a big role in the economic development and also providing well-being for the different members of society. And of course, businesses in that sense, businesses in Uzbekistan, they should develop their CSR and ESG policies or strategies based on UN SDG goals, UN Sustainable Development Goals, as in developed countries, companies already started doing that. And because UN SDG goals, it includes several social and environmental issues, like for example, poverty reduction, gender issues, climate change, and etc. And in Uzbekistan, as the poverty is kind of a pressing issue, I would say that businesses or entrepreneurs in Uzbekistan are in need, or they should actually, develop their CSR or ESG strategies on pro-poor CSR, right? Because and businesses actually, they can start from the primary stakeholders. They can start from caring about their employees first, like taking them out from the poverty and their households as well. They can start educating poor people in nearby mahallas. They can provide employment to poor people from nearby mahallas, right? And also they should participate in the overall community development and trying to have their own input in solving certain societal issues. And of course, that fighting poverty is beneficial to the business itself, because by fighting poverty, it will create stable society with prosperous future consumers, and it will also have competent people if it is involved in education. And secondly, CSR has initially emerged as a response to the criticism that business actually is the reason for the poverty, because, you know, for depleting natural resources, for the pollution, for the corruption, for the land grabbing and other issues. And also there were several scandals throughout the world in developing countries as well, you know, accusing companies on not managing or being irresponsible in their supply chain as well. So we can see that there is a role of CSR and ESG, like regulating or like, let's say, encouraging companies to become responsible and accountable. And of course, today, why I'm talking about supply chains, because if Uzbekistan is going to the world market, it should make sure that it's like businesses are clean, because when you look at the overall tendency in the world, you know, the big investors, the largest investors, they are so-called social SRIs, social responsible investors, who would like to invest only on responsible and accountable companies. And also, I would like to talk about that CSR and ESG helps businesses to regulate their environmental impact as well. Because, you know, according to several research, poverty is closely related to the environmental pollution. So the higher is the pollution rate, the higher is the number of the poor people as well. Because, you know, pollution causes several health problems. It limits food and water resources. And of course, it kind of brings society closer to the brink of poverty as well. Well, we don't have like much time because I would like to talk more about the role of ESG and CSR, but I would like to touch upon what we can do to facilitate CSR and ESG's role in poverty reduction. So we could encourage publication of non-financial resources for businesses, and in so doing, firms, of course, they can, you know, be encouraged to report on their specific pro-poor CSR strategies, and also develop reliable indicators on how to measure the pro-poor CSR, let's say, initiatives. Like, for example, number of people lifted out of poverty, or number of poor people who are the beneficiaries of those CSR strategies. And of course, we need to well, it should be provided by the government in the initial stage, because, you know, we have in the current passivity of the society, it should be like government's role to promote CSR and ESG. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Malika. And again, and thank you for dealing with this topic. It is indeed a very important one, and you are really spearheading this direction in Uzbekistan. Giving back to the community is important topic. The culture is here, but what Malika is very often is talking about is really streamlining that, systematizing that. And I do think that IFIs have the potential actually to do more here, and to try to do more projects that are related to that. So last but not least, I'd like to give the floor to Michael Matistik. He's an expert on entrepreneurship, building whole ecosystems of SMEs, and he is here in Uzbekistan over last several days, taking a tour and talking to entrepreneurs across the country, and to try teaching them, trying to give them lectures as well. But Mike, you have already talked to a lot of entrepreneurs. So, given your experience, perhaps you can give us the international perspective. You can give us some ideas that you have so far not seen in Uzbekistan, where we could really try to make additional efforts and generate substantial impact. Please.
Certainly, and I'll touch a little bit on my experiences so far here in Uzbekistan, which have all been very positive, seeing the ground level movement and interest by young individuals who believe they can make a difference and change the world. And that is a fundamental need to have a successful entrepreneurship program. But I've traveled a long way to be here, and I'm going to try to give you 20 years of experience in 7 minutes. So I need you to travel with me to my hometown in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I'm going to do this as fast as I can. It's a big story. Pittsburgh was the industrial center of the United States, the steel capital of America. And in the 1980s, that entire industry collapsed. And Pittsburgh lost half of its population. It had to move away to find jobs. It took us 30 years to recover from that loss. And entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial development was fundamental in that recovery. I've been doing this for 20 years, have invested in and created over 300 businesses in a variety of industries and in a variety of ways. And it was through the creation of my organization that you can see why and how. We're an independent organization, not tied to any specific government, but we need government role and government support. And I congratulate Uzbekistan in all of what it's doing to lower the barriers to entry and increase the opportunity for new entrepreneurs to happen. You heard a lot today talking about finance. And I want to tell you that every entrepreneur believes there's not enough money for them and that the money is too hard to get. They're not ready yet, they're told. They're not, the programs don't reach to their level of business. And we tell them, yes, it's a challenge. Money should never be easy, but money should be accessible clearly. If you raise your business to this level of success, then there's opportunity for you to attract capital to grow and develop your business. Grants and other subsidies at the lowest level to get started, fundamentally needed for that success. So those programs that we put in place and the mission of my organization is job creation. Now, in the early days, we had to focus on high growth opportunities, high technology and sophisticated innovation in life sciences and robotics to get going and create an entrepreneurial culture. It was not easy. Most people were resistant to starting a business, too much risk, too much challenge. So what we had to do was say, no, we can help you. We can give you money. We can give you help. We'll help you get started. But that was focused to high growth, and it was successful. And it put Pittsburgh on the map, the first city in the country with autonomous vehicles, fully autonomous vehicles on the roads of the city of Pittsburgh. We are a leader in drug discovery and other medical technologies. Took us 30 years to get there, but we got there. Now, that doesn't mean everybody has been helped by that. If you focus only on the high growth, what happens to everybody else? And how do we involve everybody else in the programming and the support? So the first position was, the more we rise the water, all the boats will float. And that's true. The high growth companies created restaurants, they created higher residential values, they created an opportunity for people to participate without being part of those companies. But that wasn't good enough. And we created an equitable entrepreneurship program. The equitable entrepreneurship program was for immigrants and minorities. And it was through that program that we focused on small business. They're all SMEs, but you have the high growth SMEs versus businesses which will remain small. To us, that means employing family, friends, and additional employees in living wages and sustainable businesses. That was a different type of program that was needed in order to do that kind of work. And I would tell you, because this is one of the things that I want to really emphasize when it comes to Uzbekistan, giving people the ability to believe, whether that is educational or community-based, but that idea they can do it is fundamental to this whole thing working. And it was the biggest challenge we faced in working with disadvantaged communities, underserved communities. They didn't believe they could do it. And they didn't have trust in systems. They didn't have trust in banks. They didn't have trust in government. They felt like they needed that they were going to lose. They were never going to be able to walk the path and deal with the regulations to get through. But in all sincerity, it takes time effort, and hope. And I've seen that already here in hope. So I applaud all of your efforts. I'm very encouraged to be here, and I hope to continue to have more to offer. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very important discussion, and indeed something that has really changed in Uzbekistan. And this is what actually President was talking about a few months back, and all of us know that. So this we started to believe when things have changed here 5-6 years ago. Now everything changed, and I would like to wrap this up with one very important metaphor, I think, that applies to all of the speakers, and that's the difference between involvement and commitment. And I live for the last 22 years. I live in Belgium, and we like that metaphor very much. And it says there are two animals involved in making an egg and beef sandwich. One is a chicken, which is involved, and then there is a cow, which is committed. So most of us are really committed to change in Uzbekistan, and thank you for being here. Thank you, dear audience, for taking part in this, and hope you have opportunity for the coffee break and enjoy it. Thank you very much. We still have some questions, but maybe you can ask it during the coffee break. Может, спросите уже на кофе-брейк напрямую. Спасибо.